Hello my dear students, welcome to the video. This video has been made for the Gyanodut program of Commissionerate of College Education, Government of Rajasthan. And this is the second video out of the two videos that I have made on George Orwell's famous novella Animal Farm. In my previous video, I gave you a brief introduction to the author. I talked about the themes of the novella, and then I gave you a general introduction to the novella, the genre of the writing, and general introduction, general things about the novella. In this video, I am going to talk about the characters of the novella. I am going to talk about the allegorical aspect of it. So I'll be telling you the various characters as they stand for other characters. So which character stands for which historical figure, I'll be talking about that. And then a brief summary of the novella. And in the last section of the video, I'll be talking about the symbols that have been used by the writer in this piece of writing. So before I begin with the story of the novella, there are three things that stand out that are very important when we talk of Animal Farm. And these three things are, the first thing is that this novella is an allegory. So an allegory, as I told you in my last video also, that an allegory is a story that stands for another story. So it stands in itself, it makes meaning in itself, but at the same time it symbolizes another set of characters and another set of situations. So it is an allegory, we have to remember that, and it is an allegory for the Russian Revolution, the corruption of the ideals of Russian Revolution. And the second thing which is very important for us to remember is that the setting of the novella is dystopian. So dystopia is that imaginary world which is worse than the world in which we live. Utopia is that imaginary world which is better than the world, which is better than our reality. So utopia is something which we crave for, but dystopia is something which we should fear, which we should be afraid of, we should be scared of. And this is a dystopian novella. The setting is dystopian. So we have an animal farm and the cruel things that happen with those animals. This is all the novella, this is what the novella is all about. And the third thing which we have to remember is that the most famous line and the line that epitomizes this whole novella is that all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. So this is a line that epitomizes the whole idea with which Animal Farm was written by George Orwell. So it talks about, this revolution, this Russian Revolution of 1917, it took place because the general public, the masses, they wanted to demolish the class system. They wanted a society which was more equal, which provided more opportunities to its citizens. But gradually that society, those ideals were corrupted and a new order of hierarchy was put into place. So those ideals with which this revolution took place, those ideals, they were forgotten, they were corrupted, and a new order of hierarchy was introduced in society. The people, they must have felt cheated after certain years, after a few years of the revolution. They must have felt cheated, they must have felt disillusioned by this whole idea of revolution. So these are the three things that we have to remember when we talk about Animal Farm, that this is an allegory, this is a dystopian writing, and all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. Now, talking about the characters of Animal Farm, we can divide the characters into four categories. So since this is an animal farm, it is obvious that there are many animals who live here, who work here. So the first category of animals are pigs. Now we have a lot of pigs on the farm, and we have Old Major, who is a pig, then we have Napoleon, we have Snowball, we have Squealer, and then there are a host of other pigs who are in a little bit of privileged position. Because the pigs are a little smarter than the other animals, so they take lead and they start ruling the farm. So we have the first category of pigs. The second category is of horses. So we have Boxer here, we have Clover, we have Molly. Now Boxer represents the proletariat or the working class. Molly represents the bourgeois class or the upper middle class that did not want to revolt and that wanted to live with all the comforts that this condition of inequality provided them. Then we have a category where all the other animals can be classed. So we can put Benjamin, we can put Muriel, we can put Moses. All the other animals other than pigs and other than horses, they can be put into this third category of other animals. And there are many types. So there are cows, there is a cat, then there are goats, there are sheep. All these animals can be put into this category. And the fourth category is not actually of animals, it is the category of humans. And since this is an animal farm, so we do not have many human characters here, but we do have Mr. Jones, who represents King Nicholas II of Russia. Then we have Mr. Wimper, who is a link between Animal Farm and the outer world, and then we have Mr. Pilkington and Mr. Frederick. So we have these four categories of animals who live on the animal farm, and the whole story revolves around these animals. Now, talking about the story of Animal Farm, the summary of Animal Farm. But before we begin with the summary of Animal Farm, it would be appropriate that we talk about the characters individually. Each character represents another character from Russian history. Each character in Animal Farm and each situation also in Animal Farm, it represents a situation that occurred in Russia. I mean, the incidents that occurred in Russia, they have been represented in a slightly different form in this story. So it would be better to talk about those characters before I talk about the story of the farm. Now, talking about the various characters of Animal Farm, as I've told you that each character in Animal Farm, it represents another character from Russian history. So we have an old major in the novella, and this old major, he represents Karl Marx and Vladimir Lenin. I mean, we can interpret this character in two ways. So old major could stand for Karl Marx because he gives the idea of animalism to the animals, or he can be said to be Vladimir Lenin also because he is represented as the father figure of communism on Animal Farm. So we can interpret him in any way. Then we have another character which is very important, and this character is the character of Napoleon. So Napoleon is a pig, and Napoleon stands for Joseph Stalin. So Napoleon is that pig who turns dictatorial. He is hungry for power and he takes control of the animal farm. He drives Snowball, who is another pig, he drives him out, who was his competitor. He drives him out and he takes control of the animal farm, and he establishes a dictatorial, a tyrannical rule on the farm. So the idea of revolution, it is subverted, and the revolution, it took place with an idea of an equal society. So he establishes a society where he is more equal than others. Then another important character is the character of Snowball. Now Snowball represents Leon Trotsky. Leon Trotsky was an ally of Vladimir Lenin and Joseph Stalin during the Russian Revolution, and after the revolution he was, for some time, he was a close ally of Joseph Stalin. But the idea with which he wanted to progress for the country and Stalin's ideas for the country, they did not match, and ultimately their ways fell apart, and Joseph Stalin turned completely against Leon Trotsky. So the character, the pig Snowball, he represents Leon Trotsky. So as you can see in this picture, this is Joseph Stalin, this is Vladimir Lenin, and this is Leon Trotsky. Both of the three of them, they were very close ally during the Russian Revolution of 1917. And after some time, Lenin died, and Stalin took control of the whole country, and he drove Trotsky out. Ultimately, he got him murdered. Then we have another character. This is Squealer. Now Squealer is also a pig, and he represents Molotov. Now Molotov was the propagandist with Stalin. So Squealer, the character of Squealer is that of propagandist, and he is a very important character. And he is that character through which Orwell has tried to exemplify, he has tried to talk about the power of language in a democracy or in any government. So he uses his words, he uses his language to convince all the animals on the farm about the decisions of Napoleon. The decisions are completely in favor of Napoleon. They are doing good to Napoleon. They are making him wealthy and powerful. But Squealer presents him in such a way that all the animals, they believe that whatever Napoleon is doing, he's doing it for their welfare. So Squealer is an extremely important character and he represents Molotov. And then we have the character of Mr. Jones, the human character that we have. Now, Mr. Jones, he's the owner of the animal farm and he is the one who is cruel to his animals, and that is why ultimately he is driven out of the farm by the animals. So he represents King Nicholas or Tsar Nicholas II of Russia. So as we can see here in the picture, this is Tsar Nicholas II with his family, and this is King Nicholas and his whole family, they were executed after the revolution of 1917. And then we have another human character, Mr. Pilkington. Now, Mr. Pilkington represents USA and UK. So they are the countries who wanted to, who wanted to encash the difficult condition that was there in Animal Farm, but ultimately they were not able to do that. There is another important character in the novella, and that character is of Mr. Frederick. Mr. Frederick represents Adolf Hitler, and we all know Adolf Hitler was a tyrant, and Joseph Stalin was also a tyrant, but they were arch rivals. Their ideologies were completely different. Stalin believed in communism, and Hitler believed in the Nazi ideology. So there is a very interesting episode in the novella where Napoleon tries to sell a collection of timber that is lying waste on his farmland, and he sells it to Mr. Frederick, and Mr. Frederick cheats him by paying for the timber in bogus or fake currency notes. So this incident, it exemplifies the kind of relationship that Hitler and Stalin had, and it also talks about the incident where Stalin tried to befriend Hitler for some time, but ultimately Hitler betrayed Stalin. He attacked on Russia, and ultimately Stalin had to seek the help of the ally countries UK and USA. So it talks about that incident. Then we have Mr. Wimper. Now, Mr. Wimper represents gullible Westerners and intellectuals. Mr. Wimper is that connecting link between Animal Farm and the outer world. So since the animals have decided that they will not enter into any kind of deal with human beings. So Napoleon contacts Mr. Wimper, and Mr. Wimper is the man who is an agent. So they sell all the produce of the farm to Mr. Wimper, and he takes out into the outer world and he sells it there. So Mr. Wimper represents gullible Westerners and intellectuals. Then we have Moses. We have this bird Moses, and this bird Moses represents the Orthodox Church or religion in general. So Moses is a bird who always talks about the imaginary place called the Sugar Candy Mountains, and he says that this on the Sugar Candy Mountains, everything is so pleasant and beautiful, and you get so many things to eat, and you lead a very comfortable life there. So he gives this hope of a sugar candy mountain. So initially when Moses is there at the beginning of the rebellion, they drive him out and they don't listen to him. But later on, when all the animals on the farm, they're not getting enough food, they're not leading comfortable lives, and all the ideals of revolution, all the dreams with which they rebelled against Mr. Jones, all those dreams have shattered. Then this Moses, it comes back, and all the animals, they start believing in that ideal of Sugar Candy Mountain. So religion, it tries to, the idea is that religion makes you forget all the hardships that you are facing in your lives. Now, another important character is the character of Boxer. Boxer is a horse, and he's a very strong horse. He works really hard, and the motto of his life is that I will work harder and Napoleon is always right. So these two sentences, they exemplify his whole philosophy of life. I will work harder and Napoleon is always right. Now, Boxer represents Russian laborers and workers who had blind faith in their leader and who worked tirelessly for their country. But ultimately, whatever they were working for, it was doing benefit, it was doing good to the leader rather than improving their lives. Then we have the character of Clover. Now, Clover is the female companion of Boxer, and she represents Russian female laborers and workers who were supporting the male laborers and who were working hard for the welfare of their country. Then we have another horse, Molly. And as I've already told you, that Molly represents the bourgeois class of Russia. So the upper middle class people who were not really interested in the idea of rebellion, who wanted to protect their comforts, who wanted to protect their money. So she's that kind of character who is more worried about her comforts, her food, her happiness rather than the happiness of common people on the farm. Now, another important character is the character of Benjamin. Benjamin is a donkey, and contrary to popular belief, Benjamin is really intelligent, and he understands all the cunning, all the manipulations of Napoleon that he's subjecting his people to, all the exploitation that he's subjecting his people to. But he does not say anything. He does not try to improve the popular idea about Napoleon. He does not try to inform all the other animals about what he's doing, and he simply observes what is happening. So Benjamin is an interesting character in the novella, and he represents George Orwell himself. So he's looking at everything, he understands everything, but he does not do anything about it. And these are some of the important characters of the novella, and they represent some other characters from Russian history, from Russian political scene. Now, moving on to the next section of my video, I will be talking about summary of the novella. Now, since this is the story of animals and farm, so we have an old major here. And old major, as I told you, he represents Karl Marx or Vladimir Lenin, and he's an old boar, and he has a dream. So he wants to share his dream with other animals. So he describes this dream to all the other animals on one night, and he has this dream about an equal world, a world full of animals, a world which will be ruled by animals, and a world devoid of torturous, exploitative human beings. So he talks about this dream to all the other animals, and he gives them this ideal of animalism. Then after some time, old major dies, and after old major dies, all the animals, they are inspired by his philosophy of animalism, and they plan and they prepare for a rebellion against Mr. Jones, who is the owner of the farm and who is he is a bit exploitative, and he tortures them, and he does not feed them well. So they start planning and preparing for a rebellion. Now, when Mr. Jones one night he forgets to feed them, he does not feed them on Saturday, and it is Sunday afternoon, he still does not feed them. And then he comes and he starts flogging the animals. So they become angry, and suddenly they all revolt against him, and they make him run out of the farm. They drive him out of the farm. So this is the rebellion where King Nicholas the second of Russia, he was driven out of the country and he was killed, and the communists, they took control of the country. Then Manor Farm, I mean the original name of the farm was Manor Farm. So this the name is changed and it is called Animal Farm now. And 7 commandments of animalism, 7 principles of animalism, they are painted on the wall of the barn. So I will be talking about these 7 principles shortly. Now, initially the rebellion is a success. Initially, all the animals are happy. They get more food to eat than they would get during the times of Jones. And then they have Sunday meetings. They on a Sunday morning they all collect in a certain area, and they hoist the flag. They sing the song "Beasts of England," which was taught to them by the old major. And then they have discussion. So they have proposals for the welfare of the farm, and then they have discussions about those proposals, and everything is done democratically. So initially this rebellion is a success, and the pigs, because they are more intelligent than other animals, so they become supervisors. They are the ones who take lead. So they are the ones who will be giving all the tasks to other animals. They are the ones who will be supervising their job. So they start taking that position of leadership. And then there are three pigs who are conspicuous, who are smarter than others. So we have Napoleon, who represents Joseph Stalin, and then we have Snowball, who represents Leon Trotsky, and then we have Squealer, who represents Molotov. So these are the three pigs who are smarter, and out of these three, Napoleon and Snowball, they are smarter than everybody else on the farm. And Snowball, he has very original ideas for the welfare of his animals. So he is always thinking about their welfare. He's always thinking about different ways as to improve the quality of life of animals on the farm. Napoleon is a bit reserved, and he looks around, he notices everything, he observes everything, but he does not do much about the welfare of the animals. And Squealer is with Napoleon. So Squealer is the propagandist. Whatever Napoleon says, Squealer has to justify that. Now, one day, Mr. Jones and his men, they return on Animal Farm and they try to take it back. And Snowball, he knew that this would happen, so he had already prepared for this kind of an attack. And because of the tactics of Snowball, because of the preparation of Snowball, the animals are able to once again defeat the human beings. They are able to drive them out of the animal farm. And this battle is named as the Battle of the Cowshed. Then Snowball, he after some time, Snowball becomes the hero of the battle. All the animals, they start praising him and they start holding him in very high regard. Now Snowball, after some time, he starts drawing plans of the windmill. So they have certain books from Mr. Jones's farmhouse, and they read a lot. The pigs, they read a lot. Snowball reads a lot, and he teaches so many skills to himself. So he learns to read, he learns to write, and then he is learning to make the windmill. He's reading those books, so he has a plan for a windmill, and his idea is that if they will have electricity on the farm, then the quality of life of these animals will improve. They will have more leisure hours than working hours. And Napoleon opposes the plan. So Napoleon, he thinks that this plan is he believes that animals should work more. They should focus more on producing food than other comforts. So Snowball is driven out of the farm. And there's this very interesting incident. On the day when the voting is to happen on the proposal of the windmill, on that day, Napoleon suddenly he brings forth 9 of very ferocious, of very formidable dogs, and these dogs, they drive Snowball out of the farm. And Napoleon tells all the other animals that from now onwards, no Sunday meetings will be held. So those Sunday meetings, which were a symbol of the democratic process, they are demolished. They are abolished. And Napoleon says, he tries to convince the animals that actually the windmill was his own idea and Snowball had stolen that idea. That is why he has driven him out, and Snowball is with Mr. Jones. So for the rest of the novel, this is very interesting to see here that for the rest of the novel, Napoleon uses Snowball as a scapegoat, and he puts all the blame, whatever wrong happens on the farm, Napoleon puts the blame on Snowball. So if the animals are not getting good food to eat, he will say that Snowball comes in the night and he spoils all the farm produce. He destroys so many things. So for every failure that Napoleon has, he has someone to blame, and that person whom he blames is Snowball. Now, much of the next year, he says that he will build the windmill. So most of the next year is spent in building the windmill. All the animals, they are working very hard, but contrary to the principles of animalism, Napoleon hires a solicitor and he begins trading with the neighboring farm. So it was a basic principle of animalism that they will not interact with human beings. But despite that principle, Napoleon starts talking to the human beings. He starts talking to Mr. Whymper, and he becomes an agent who will take care of the farm produce getting sold in the outside world. And then there is a storm one night, and the whole windmill is destroyed. So this windmill, which was the result of one whole year's labor and hard work of the animals, this windmill is destroyed because of that storm. Now, as Snowball has been driven out of the farm, Napoleon is all free and he becomes a dictator. So he becomes a totalitarian ruler, and he forces confessions from innocent animals. So he would punish animals, he would torture them, and he would torture them to confess of those crimes which they have not committed. And this is symbolic of the similar kind of atrocities that Stalin inflicted on his populace, on his people. So I'm sorry, Napoleon and the pigs, they move into Mr. Jones's house, the farmhouse that he had. So again, this is against the principles of animalism, because animalism says that no animal shall sleep in beds. But they change the commandments of animalism and they change it to this maxim that no animal shall sleep in bed with sheets. So they start living in Mr. Jones's house, they start consuming liquor, they start enjoying all the comforts that a proper warm house could have them, could ensure them. And they start sleeping in beds. And Squealer is, again, he comes to the rescue of Napoleon every time. So he would convince the animals that since pigs are working so hard, they manage the whole farm, they plan all the things, so their labor is greater than the labor of animals, and that is why they need more comforts, they need more food, and all the animals, they are convinced. And on the other hand, the animals, they receive less and less food. The pigs are growing fatter, but all the animals, they are growing weaker because they don't get enough food to eat. And there is a point there is a point in the novella when the animals, they are getting even less food than they used to get while Mr. Jones was there. Now, after the windmill is completed, Napoleon sells a pile of timber. As I told you, I have talked to you about this incident, that he wants to sell a pile of timber, but Mr. Frederick, he cheats on him, and Mr. Frederick, he pays all the fake currency notes to him. And after a couple of days of this incident, I mean, after the sale of this timber, Frederick and his men, they attack the farm and they explode the windmill, but they are eventually defeated. But this defeat is a very dearly bought one for the animals, because many of the animals, they die, and many others, they are seriously injured. So Boxer also gets injured in this war of the windmill. And Boxer, as we know, he is the strongest animal on the farm. So the seven commandments of the farm, they are being flouted, they are being broken by the pigs, and the language of the commandments, it keeps on revising. I mean, they keep on revising the language. So again, the role of language becomes very important here as we move further with the story. And now Boxer, as he got injured during this battle of the windmill, he is not keeping well, and the windmill has been destroyed. So they need to rebuild it, the windmill. And the boxer says that, again, I will work hard. This is the maxim of Boxer, that I will work hard, and Napoleon is always right. So he works even harder. Even in his injured condition, he works harder, and ultimately he collapses to his injuries. But Squealer, who is the propagandist, he lies about the death of Boxer, and he says that Boxer was taken very good care of while he was away in the hospital, whereas the truth is that Boxer was sold off to a butcher who did kill Boxer, as he was weak and he was of no use to Napoleon. So years pass, and Animal Farm expands its boundaries. So again, there is a reference to imperialism. So Animal Farm expands its boundaries after Napoleon purchases 2 fields from other neighboring farmers, Pilkington. So Napoleon, against the tenets of animalism, he is interacting with human beings, he is into business with them, and he purchases other farms. And life for all the animals is harsh. They are still undernourished, they are still working harder than ever. So their life has not changed, and it seems as if it is even worse than what it was during Mr. Jones's times. And eventually the pigs, they begin walking on their hind legs. So the maxim of animalism, it said that 2 legs bad and 4 legs good. But as time passes, pigs, they start imitating human beings, and they take on many other qualities of the former human oppressors. So they start resembling human beings in their behavior. And the 7 commandments, they are reduced to one single law, and that law is all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. There cannot be a more powerful line to define the corruption of the ideals of communism than this one. And the novel ends with Pilkington sharing drinks with the pigs in Jones's house. So Mr. Jones's house, the animals, they live there, pigs live there, and they invite Mr. Pilkington for a party, and they're having good time there. So Napoleon changes the name of the farm back to Manor Farm. So they are back to square one. All that rebellion, all that trouble that they went through, it is all in vain. And ultimately they start quarreling during a card game. They start cheating. Napoleon is cheating, Mr. Pilkington is cheating, and then they start quarreling during this card game. And all the other animals, they are watching this whole scene through a window, and they cannot tell pigs from the humans. That is, the pigs have started resembling human beings to a great extent. So this is the note where the novella ends. So I mean, we see that how George Orwell has been able to portray this whole idea of the corruption of the ideas of communism, and he has been able to talk about the theme of the importance of language in power, the role of populace. There are so many themes that he talks about which are relevant even today, which are which are even more relevant in today's world than ever. Now, talking about the 7 commandments, I have been talking about the 7 commandments. So animalism is equal to communism in this novella. And the 7 commandments, the original commandments are that whatever goes upon 2 legs is an enemy. As I told you, they have shortened this maxim to 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. So whatever goes upon 2 legs is an enemy. Whatever goes upon 4 legs or has wings is a friend. No animal shall wear clothes, no animal shall sleep in a bed, no animal shall drink alcohol, no animal shall kill any other animal, and all animals are equal. But these 7 commandments, they are changed to these new commandments, and the changed commandments are that no animal shall sleep in a bed with sheets. So they don't use bed sheets, but they sleep in bed, the pigs. No animal shall drink alcohol to excess. So they drink alcohol, but who will decide this excess? So they will not drink it to excess. No animal shall kill any other animal without cause. So if they have cause to kill them, they can kill. That is why all the hens are killed, all the sheep are killed. I mean, that scene, that very gory scene that we have in the novella. And all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. So this is how they change these commandments. The pigs, the leaders, they change these commandments for their own benefit. Now moving on to the next section of the video, I'll talk about the symbols that George Orwell uses in the novella. So the first symbol is that of names. Now the names are that have been used in Animal Farm, they are highly symbolic, the name of the characters, and they are suggestive of the characters or the roles of the characters. So the historical Napoleon, he was an all-powerful emperor of France, as we know. And then we have an old major. Now major is a high military rank held by an army officer, and old major, he does that job. He is the one who asks the animals to rebel. And Mr. Jones is one of the commonest names in England. So he is, I mean, it represents all virtually any human being who is cruel. Then we have Snowball. So Snowball is associated with fun, and it has connotations of being harmless, of connotations of fragility. The same way Snowball is harmless for the animals. And then Boxer, the name Boxer. So Boxer is a powerful fighter, and the name, it is symbolic. It is suggestive of the power that Boxer the horse had. Then Squealer, it has negative associations, and squealer is a person who squeals on people. So squealer has negative associations. And finally, we have Moses in the biblical prophet who receives the 10 commandments from God. So we have all these names which are symbolic in the play, in the novella, I'm sorry. And then we have the next symbol is animalism. As I told you, animalism is equal to communism. It represents communism. So communism talks about equality. It talks about a classless society where everybody is equal. People get equal opportunities. People get equal wages. So it talks about a very utopian, idealistic kind of a world. The same way, animalism talks about equality among the animals. It talks about establishment of the rule of animals throughout the world. So animalism is equal to communism, and the way the ideals of communism are, and I'm sorry, the ideals of animalism are flouted in the story. So it represents the flouting of the ideals of communism by Stalin and his party. Then milk and apples. Now the milk and apples which are stolen by pigs in the initial part, in the second chapter of the novella. So they are symbolic of the riches and wealth. That is why the pigs, they feel a special sense of entitlement for these riches, because they feel that they are the ones who are smarter, they are the ones who are working hard. So these riches belong to them rather than to animals, and they claim they claim these extra food stuff as their own. Now we have this symbol of windmill. Now windmill is symbolic of the hope that animals have in their future, because Snowball tells them that if they have a windmill on the farm, they will be able to produce their own electricity, and all the stalls of animals, they will be well lit, they will get warm water supply, and then they will mechanize the whole farm. So the whole farm will be automated, and animals will get more time to relax and enjoy their lives. So the windmill is symbolic of the hope that Snowball has given to them. So it is symbolic of a hopeful future, a better future that they have. But eventually the windmill gets destroyed twice, and animals, they have to work even harder to get this dream, to realize this dream. So eventually the windmill it comes to represent the constant hard labor that the animals do for very little benefit. And its destruction, the destruction of the windmill, is the destruction or the loss of the hopes of a better future. Now, another symbol is the old major's skull. So Napoleon, when he assumes control, he gets the skull of old major. He gets it put up on for display for other animals to salute each week, and this represents an attempt to acknowledge both the roots of animalism, and it gives pigs their power, their authenticity. But when the ideals of animalism go downhill, then it is pointless for animals to bow before that skull. So it is reburied, and the burial of this skull is symbolic of the burials of the ideals of animalism. And then we have the symbol of Mr. Jones's rifle. So we have Mr. Jones, he has left his rifle behind when his men, they retreat from the Battle of the Cowshed, and the rifle is a symbol of the animals' victory over their human enemies, and it is fired in celebration of the anniversaries of their greatest victories, and it becomes a symbol of the victory of that the animals had. It becomes a symbol of the rebellion. It becomes a symbol of the Battle of the Cowshed, the bravery of animals. So these are some of the symbols that George Orwell has used in the novella. So this is all for this video. If you have any questions, any queries, you can write to me in the comment box, or you can contact me directly. Thank you for watching.